Guys, welcome to the Choke Points. In this video, we are going to talk about BRICS leaving Treasury. Say what I'm talking about. See, when you go and Google these type of terms like BRICS quietly leaving Treasury or BRICS dumping dollar, you'll find that lots and lots of articles are out there with this that they just try to sell their content by using these type of trending terms. But the real question is that how much of this is really factual and how what's the reality behind it, right? So I'm going to show you that's what we are going to talk about in this video, and I'm going to show you how these type of things are propagated throughout the internet. Okay, and I want you to see this thing, I want you to understand this thing, and I want you to not fall for this propagandas that are there. Okay, yes, BRICS is a legitimate organization. I happen to like BRICS myself, I because I am of the idea of multipolarity. Okay, multilateralism. Why? Because world was very peaceful and world was prosperous and thriving for thousands of years when it was multipolar. Okay, now uh so so when the BRICS, when these type of things happen, then BRICS loses its credibility. Why? Because these type of articles are published not just by some small website or something. Okay, these things are published by, in fact, very well renowned uh, bodies and entities where they use these fancy titles, the catchy titles with that are SEO friendly and all that, right? Just so that their article can be sold. All right. And then that article gets copied and pasted somewhere else, then somewhere else, and then somewhere else. And it just propagates throughout the whole entire internet. And then you will see lots and lots of people making videos about those things without even confirming or verifying the data as to if it is true at all or not, right? So let's talk about that today and let's get started. It's not going to be a very long video. Please do like and subscribe, stay with me till the end, and let's get going. Okay, but before that, let me share my screen so that I can show you what I am talking about. All right, so now for example, look at this. This is an article that was published in ING on December 19, 2025. All right. ING. Okay. This is not some small thing. It says FX daily. FX forex trading. BRICS quietly leaving the treasury market. Where it says that this week's central bank meeting have not been explosive for foreign exchange market, but have provided some support to sterling and weighed on the yen. We note in the overnight release of US Treasury TIC data for October. Okay, for October, that BRICS nations holdings of US Treasury continue to edge lower. For today, the focus will be on how far USD JPY has to rise, blah, 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 all that. Okay. BRICS quietly leaving the treasury. Now, let's look at what exactly it is talking about. So, I went on to this went on to look for the treasury government website, the TIC data. TIC data is basically, it talks about the countries and their holdings in the US treasury. Okay, and this data is right here. All right, now, BRICS countries, there are 10 full members. Okay. So before I go, let me start my pen so that I can actually pinpoint it so that you don't have to rely on the cursor. All right. Give me a second. So then I will show you exactly how all these things are created. Okay. Now let's look at it. Which BRICS countries are here in this whole entire Japan, you got the blank, Luxembourg, France, Ireland, Taiwan, Switzerland, so mostly European countries. Mostly European countries. Then one or two Middle Eastern countries. Okay. And then most of these are US allies that were there in Bretton Woods systems in 1944. Since then, those are the countries right here. You can see that. Okay, I don't even have to go into it. But on the BRICS countries, India is here, Brazil is here, and UAE is here, and China. Where is China? China is right here, mainland. Okay, and then Hong Kong. Hong Kong is also part of China, so we continue to that. Okay, now that's it. That's it. All right. Now, what exactly is happening here? Let's talk about that. All right. What they're saying is that in 2020, let's look for China, for example. Okay. What they're saying is in October 2024, China's share was the 760.1, and in October in 2000 of 2025 it dropped to 688.7. Okay, then let's look at Hong Kong. Hong Kong's was 261.8 and it dropped down to 251.2. Okay, then you come down to it, India. Let's look at India. 241.4 billions and 190.7 billions, meaning that there is drop of almost $12 billion, and they have sold some of that, right? Then you come down to, now let's look at Brazil. Okay, Brazil's was 228 and it came down to 167. All right, the Brazil is also around the same thing. All right, 20-30 billion dollars, give take. Okay, now let's look at United Arab Emirates. Okay, 110, it was 68.3, and UAE actually ended up buying that much. So 10, now if you look at 30, it's almost 40 some billion-dollar worth of treasury thing they ended up buying extra. Okay, that's what they did during the investment when they were pledging to President Trump that, oh, we are going to invest that much money, this much money. So that's what they meant, meaning that they are going to invest it into US Treasury bonds, and that's what they did. So now let's look at this whole thing. Okay, now let me show you something even much worse. I searched this: BRICS quietly leaving the treasury market. Trillion dollar banks warn BRICS nations are quietly leaving the market. Okay, trillion-dollar is the same thing. Now this website is copying this. Okay, now check this out: dailyhodl.com, then you have longbridge.com. Trillion-dollar banks warn bonds BRICS nations are quietly leaving the this forex. BRICS quietly leaving the treasury market. Forex factory. Okay, then FX outlook: BRICS quietly leaving the treasury market. Then BRICS quietly leaving the treasury market, ING, and then metal market daily. Okay, and blah 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 blah. And I just showed you what exactly is happening: quietly leaving the treasury market, and this is just for 1 year. That's it. And so this is why you have to be very careful about the propagandas that are created like this. Okay, now what does that mean? Some of you may be like, oh, so what? But isn't that what it means, that they're leaving? No, they're not leaving. It's just for that particular month. Why is that? That's the question. For each and every country, it is different. All right. Now, for example, let's look into it. For, for just look, let's look into what exactly is happening here. Okay, what's happening is this. See, for example, if you look into China's thing, right? We talked about China. China was what, 700 some billion dollars, came down to 68 point some $7 billion. All right, so that means what, 11 point something. So basically close to 12 billion. India's was what, 202 billion dollars to 190 billion dollars to 12 billion dollars. Brazil 164 something, 172 or 192 it was for Brazil, I think. Brazil was 228. It came down to 167. All right. So Brazil lost quite a bit. All right. So overall combined is, if you look into it, so 30 or 40 some billion dollars total. Okay. Now this total 40 some billion dollars, but the BRICS, the BRICS combined lost, right? 40 some billion dollars. UAE made up for it. Just one BRICS country made up for the whole entire thing, right? So now let's look into this, why each and every country, all some of these countries are doing it. Okay, and first of all, let's look into China. Now when you look into China, China has some its own thing going on, right? All right, so China basically, what it does is that China not only buys and sells all the time. When they need a dollar for something, then they have to sell it. Okay, that's what they're basically doing. All right, but India, for example, now India is specific, very specific. For India, like, I will tell you, hold on a second, let me look at the data. So for India, there are quite a few things that happen. All right, for India, a rupee went down against the dollar. Now the rupee went down to 91.2 or something like that. All right, and that was because of that was effect of the tariff. Why effect of tariff? Number one reason being that when you increase, when tariffs hit, then of course, first thing first, because products become expensive, so you are losing banks are losing dollar. Why? Because exporters are not able to sell. That's number one thing. Now, if even if they are selling, okay, so it's not going to be that much volume. Now, whatever the offset is, whatever the difference is, that difference has to be offset by what? Somehow US government has to intervene. Why? Because let's say if US all these banks lose say $12 billion because exporters are not able to export, then they have to somehow make up for that dollar. Now, that's one aspect of it. Second aspect is that normally Indian government and both Chinese governments, what they do is that they devalue their currency over the period of time, slowly and slowly, in order to stay competitive in the market. Okay. Now, China's strategy is slightly different because China has that leverage of its manufacturing prowess. All right. China is manufacturing power. So China has that leverage. What China does is that has a very simple strategy that they make their products so cheap and then they flood the market that they don't even have to really devalue their currency in order to really stay competitive. It's just simply by sheer volume and simply by government subsidies and all that, they make their products cheaper. And once the competition from the local market is gone, they immediately raise the prices. Like for example, I will give you a simple example of IKEA. For example, when IKEA came to US, okay, so IKEA's furnitures used to be very cheap, and actually the quality is always garbage, anyways. But if you are looking for a, let's say, coffee table, $10 coffee table, use it for 6 months and throw it. Just it's just $10. So in the beginning, it was very cheap, and then what it did, it actually killed the local furniture market. And when it killed the local furniture market, now the same IKEA actually sells the furnitures for the price that were being sold at the same price as the local furniture manufacturers. Now they have established themselves in the market. That's how they do in the cell phone market. They flooded India's cell phone market by with their Huawei actually did that thing. Huawei and there were a few more, they built cheap phones. When they built cheap phone, and Chinese government was subsidizing it, okay, by pouring money into it, and they subsidized the whole entire thing. India's local market was immediately diminishing. And what that does to Indian market, you have to understand this. When this happens, then your FDI inflow stops too. So let's say if South Korean company Samsung or some other company wants to invest in India, they're like, hey, there's too many Chinese phones in the market, we can't compete with that. So why should we invest here? That hurts India's economy in the long run as well, right? Even the cheaper Chinese products, they keep the inflation under control, but it does not help the FDI. So that's how Chinese actually control. So Chinese mechanism of keeping their uh, market in competition is different, and for that reason, what they do is that they sell the treasury, they take the money from the treasury, and then they put that money into the local market somewhere. Okay, they dump that money to subsidize some other markets. That's what they do. So their reason for uh, s- cashing their treasury is different. Now, what India is doing, India's reason for cashing the treasury is different. So now there are a couple of things, other things that is India doing. Number one is India is basically trading in national currencies now. Okay, most of those things are happening in national currencies. So when you are trading in national currencies, your exports are in national currencies, lots of it. And even though still lots of trade happens in dollar, but they are simply shifting towards the national currency. Okay, so when that happens, then you reach that dollar scarcity as well, little bit. Now you have to maintain a certain level of dollar into your central banks. Now if so, to do that, what do? You sell the treasury and to get the dollar, and then what do you do is that you take that dollar and sell it to the banks, so that those banks can actually provide the dollar wherever it is needed. Okay, so that's how these things work. All right, it has nothing to do with BRICS quietly leaving the treasury. All right, just at the beginning of this year, India was ready to do $500 billion of increase India US trade to $500 billion. But now it is, yeah, around 80, 100, $120 billion. Out of $40 billion is import, $80 billion is export, all that mumbo jumbo. But slowly and slowly, that is going to diminish if the tariffs are not removed. Okay. But it clearly is not this thing. Okay. It's clearly not this thing. Okay. Now, does it point to de dollarization? No, it doesn't point to de-dollarization. I mean, de-dollarization is something not happening actually. De-dollarization, you see, I to me, de-dollarization is something that if you have dollar and you are not using it, or you are simply getting rid of the dollar, then yeah. But here you are selling your treasury to get the dollar. So how is that even part of the dollar? So all these banks, all these articles are written basically to create a hype so that uh, it is read. Otherwise, who's going to read all that crap, right? So that's the whole point of it, guys. So yeah, treasury, nobody's going to leave treasury, or not, neither India nor China. China in 2024, China did 650 billion dollars of trade with the US alone. Okay. So anyone thinking that they are going to leave US dollars and this and that, in their dreams. Okay. See, when a reserve currency, the problem is this: when a reserve currency, okay, when a reserve currency uh, goes downhill or leaves the market, then it creates a vacuum in the market. And when that happens, then what happens is that it actually crashes the whole entire global economy. So anyone who thinks that if dollar is gone or dollar crashes, all of a sudden world will become a peaceful place, a nice place, and this and that, I can assure you that this is not going to happen. What's going to happen is that there will be hyperinflation, and lots of small countries that have little bit of dollar left in them, lots and lots of exporter that will go out of business, lots and lots of small countries are going to suffer. Why? Because they have their exports are just pretty much non-existent, and whatever little bit is there, it's in dollar. All those countries are going to immediately have a serious impact on their economy. For example, Argentina is slowly and slowly shifting its economy towards the dollar. Pretty much the entire Middle East. Look at the Middle East. Middle East currency is simply pegged to the dollar. That's about it. So when you see, if you go look into top 10 reserve currency, you find the top 10 reserve currencies are mostly Middle Eastern countries. But you will never see dollar in the top 10 currency. You rarely see that. So what happens is that uh, it's just the dollar has always been in the top 10 currency, simply with a different name that has been from the Middle Eastern countries. What's going to happen to them? Their economy will collapse immediately. Then let's go to other countries. There are other countries that are basically heavily relying on dollar. European Union probably may survive because they only use 2% of their trade is in dollar. Rest is in euro, because internally, right? Only thing European Union does in dollar is when they buy it from like China or India or somewhere else, but that's about it. But other than that, when there is a vacuum, like for example, a country like Sri Lanka's economy collapsed just because in the COVID, their tourism based ex- economy, that was their mainly tourism and textile. So all that disappeared. They couldn't get any dollars. What? Guess what happened? They couldn't import anything. Because they couldn't import anything, so it led to hyperinflation. I mean, that led to hyperinflation. There was serious problem, right? So anyone who thinks the dollar, if dollar is goes away, then it's all gonna be good. Then no, it will create hyperinflation globally. Actually, in fact, I will give you another example. These are factual things. Okay, Like when in 1973, when President Reagan actually declared that there will be no, when he removed the pegging of dollar from the gold, he said that dollar will have no pegging with the gold and this and that. And 5 6 years later, after the formation of G7, they decided that there will be oil for dollar deal, all right? But when he declared it, so from 1973 to 1989, okay, for next 15 16 years, global economy was in turmoil. It's not something, uh, it was not easy thing, okay, because countries just didn't know, hey, we were using the reserve currency, what happened to it now? It's not part of the gold system. Then what? How are we going to manage all that? So then this was primary reason why India actually went almost on the verge of bankruptcy in 1989 and 1990. So this is how it works, okay? And so China is leaving not because of all that. China is simply selling the treasury so that China can pump that money into some local market somewhere so that they can stay competitive, and then they actually get rid of all the local competition. That's the whole strategy here. Okay. Now Brazil is doing because Brazil wants that dollar. Brazil has coffee was tariffed for 50% on this and that. So Brazil, clearly Brazil reserve banks are losing dollar because of that. So what Brazil is going to do? They have to to take the necessary measures, right? How did they do that? They will sell the treasury. They will take the treasury, the loss and all that. They will compensate the loss by paying those coffee exporters until they find another market. That's how it's gonna be. And then the lots of times these governments actually what they do is they provide the subsidy by providing these dollars, and so that the exporters can find alternatives to their products. And government basically does the talking behind the scenes. Okay. So that's the whole idea behind it. It's not that dollar is collapsing or something. Okay. So stay frosty, guys. Enjoy, take care, and please do like and subscribe. And I'll talk to you guys in another video. Take care.